This is page 3 of Project 1 and perhaps the most confusing in general for students. So let's take some time, go over this a little more slowly. Alright, we'll start with hours. Now hours is not the tricky part. Remember that our pay is equal to the number of hours we work multiplied by our pay rate. So for Asa Endo, you know her rate and you know her gross pay. So if you want to solve for number of hours, you simply need to, if we divide both sides of this equation by rate, we'll find that the number of hours is equal to the gross pay divided by rate. So that's how you'll figure out Asa's. Next, you have a box where you have to solve for gross pay. In that case, you can just use this equation outright. Gross pay equals number of hours times rate. So find the information in the table. Now here's the part where students start to get a little confused. Finding state and local tax. Okay, so look at state tax. Look at this box. Let's start with the equation. So our taxes, meaning the dollar amount that this is going to accrue, our tax is equal to our gross pay multiplied by our tax rate. So in this case, we're talking about state. So our state taxes, the dollar amount, is equal to the gross pay times the tax rate. Now, we can't fill this in because if you notice, although we do know the gross pay, we don't know the tax rate. So before we even get to this, we're going to have to figure that out. So in order to figure out this rate, we're going to look at someone else's information. Okay, it's kind of like detective work. So if we look at Olga on line 3, who has all of her information filled in, we can use this same equation. It's a little dark. We can use this same equation, state taxes equal gross pay times tax rate, and we can use it to solve for the tax rate because the tax rate is going to be the same for everybody. They're not going to make certain people pay more or less. So for Olga, we find that her gross pay is $844.48 and she paid $25.33 in taxes. So $25.33 is equal to $84.48 multiplied by some tax rate. So I want to solve for tax rate. So I divide both sides of this equation by $844.48 and I find that my state tax rate is going to be equal to $844.48, or excuse me, it's going to be equal to $25.33 divided by $844.48. So once I have that rate, okay, once I have that number, I plug that in to tax rate up here. And that's how I will figure out Frances Fletcher's state taxes. So again, once I get this number, I can plug it into tax rate. I know her gross pay is $867.36, so I plug that in there, and that will tell me her state taxes. You would use the same technique to find local taxes. You'd use the same technique to find local taxes. For Ramon Vega, the local is missing. So we could use someone else. You could use Olga again. You could use anyone who has all their information filled in. So maybe we use Marcus this time. And you would set up the equation for Marcus to solve for the rate. So remember, this time we're talking about local taxes. Our taxes, the dollar amount, is equal to our gross pay multiplied by the tax rate. So you would plug in his gross pay, which is $860.08, plug in his taxes, which were $1075, and use that to solve for rate. Once you have this rate, you can take it and return to Ramon. We know Ramon's gross pay is $281.75, so to find Ramon's local taxes, again, you would take his pay rate, $281.75, and multiply it by that rate that you just found, and that would give you his local taxes.